Steve Kilbey, pop singer, opinionated, arty, lefty. I'm a vegetarian, I'm anti-war, peace-loving, it's got an opinion on everything. One of those, I smoke dope, I love music and art, arty, lefty. I'm a vegetarian and all that stuff. So if you want to stick around and hear what I have to say on all of these subjects, strangely enough, in my life, there are a few areas I consider myself an expert in. One of them would be rock music in my era. Another one would sort of be mythology and sort of children's literature about, you know, your Tolkien and your Narnia and sort of Norse mythology and this sort of thing. And then sadly or happily or whatever, however you'd like to look at it, one of my third speciality subjects would be drugs and intoxication. And I am an expert on this subject. I've taken loads and loads and loads of drugs. But to talk about drugs is like talking about food. It's such a huge subject. And there's food that's good for you and there's food that's bad for you. There's some food some people shouldn't have. There's some food some people should have. There's some food, you know what I mean? You see where I'm going. It's like, it's an enormous subject. And it also comes loaded strangely with this emotional, legal, sort of finger-pointing, un-American, un-Australian, this presupposition that everybody should think that drugs is bad. And, you know, we don't really want to talk about that. Julia Gillard on drugs. Oh, that won't be happening while I'm Prime Minister. And that's the end of it. Yeah, for a progressive Prime Minister. Oh, no, you know, it's not even like, you know, like, you know, I don't know. So there's this huge, already this emotional charged kind of thing. I remember a drug dealer telling me once, a very intelligent drug dealer who's now long dead, but he died of cancer, not drugs. And he told me, he said, you know, once upon a time, the headlines used to scream communism. And everybody would go, oh! And he said, and then sort of that wore out, and sort of, he said, and they had to find something new, and they found heroin. And when they say heroin, everyone goes, ah! Before, it's true. It's like if ever there was a word, it's now replaced by terrorist. You know what I mean? If you say heroin, a few people say, oh! But if you say terrorist, that's a word that gets people's attention. You know, if you write enough emails with the word terrorist or terrorism in it, sooner or later someone check you out. Probably you have to write a lot more with the word heroin in it before anyone would actually be interested these days. So it's not quite such a sort of a horror thing that it used to be. So each drug is different, and each drug has a purpose. Just like each food. But I'm getting myself in trouble there because now I'm saying, oh, meat. So you think there's a purpose for meat? No, I don't. Do you think there's a purpose for crack? No, I don't. I don't think there's any purpose for crack except, you know, if you do it, it's gonna fuck you up. Heroin, yes, there is a reason. I knew when I was in Sweden, I was immersed in this subculture. Everybody I knew, they were pimps, thieves, prostitutes, kind of hustlers and rat bags, and almost every one of them had had a terrible, sordid childhood. From all countries of the world, gathered in Sweden, they'd all have been raped and brutalized and beaten and spent their time in orphanages and stuff like this. And these people were all heroin addicts. And you know what? Why couldn't some progressive government like Sweden go, these people, if they have led such terrible lives, if they find comfort in this substance, why not give it to them? You're never going to rehabilitate them. They're never going to be part of society. It doesn't matter what you give them or the chance of giving them. As children, they were betrayed. And so in that case, so all these people I knew, I was the only guy taking heroin for no reason, for kicks. I started out for kicks, although of course it took me away from my bad conscience about myself, my phoniness, the rotten things I'd done. And so when I had it, I felt, oh gee, I like myself. So I could see why these people on the fringes of society, believe me, like fresh going in and out of jail and all of that, who were now my friends and acquaintances because I was a heroin addict like them, they had a reason. And so for that drug, give it to those people who are living with these terrible pasts. Let them have heroin and put up with the consequences, which they were happy to do. So, but for the general population like me, like hedonists fooling around with drugs, heroin's a bad drug. Heroin's addictive, and it is a horror show, but it's not the horror show they're trying to put on you. So the horror show, and people go, ah, heroin isn't like that. It's more like, oh no, it's more like that horror show. It's more like instead of a violent, hideous thrill that they're trying to make out to be, it's a long trudge through a horrible place where you don't want to go. It's much, the heroin hell that I imagined before I ever took heroin when I was a kid, and I was one of the people going, oh, if anybody said heroin, was not anything like the true hell of getting off an opiate. And then we have cocaine, which once again, like heroin, is the West invented this drug, and extracting the active ingredients from coca leaves. To my knowledge, they don't have a lot of trouble with coca leaves in Peru. People take coca leaves and they deal with whatever comes from having the coke, just like you do with beer. We all know, you go down the pub, you have one beer, it's all right. You have 3 beers, not so good. You have 10 beers a night, you can have problems, but it's not a legal problem. It's like, just like eating 10 potatoes a night, or, you know, doing too many push-ups. You know, all of these problems that come with these drugs should be up to the individual or seen as medical problems. They weren't legal problems until someone in America, of course, the country who invented all this fucking shit, the heroin and the morphine and the cocaine, the people who said, no, us chemists, we don't need all these other alkaloids, we'll just take the strongest thing straight out of it, like nature never intended, and we'll give it to you, just like they're trying to do with marijuana. We'll take the worst or strongest or the most useful to us and bang, give it to people, and they wonder why they have problems, where one could say in the countries they're used to smoking and eating opium and using coca leaves, the individuals might be suffering from the ups and downs of using these substances, but it's not a problem for society. It's not, there's no one, you know, there's not sort of people raping and not going to work, or, you know, these people are all still working in the fields or climbing up mountains on these drugs, but they're kind of, it seems like nature put these substances there, you know, and the coca leaves helps these people in Peru and stuff up in the high altitudes, and the opium helps these people living these probably hard lives in these regions where it is. I'm just generalizing here, but it's there for a reason, and it isn't a problem. And the hashish in India and all these things, no one's having a problem with them. You know, the Aborigines aren't having a problem with DMT. The people in the Amazon aren't having a problem with the vine. You know, it's all going along kind of smoothly and sorting itself out. Just like playing with bow and arrow. You know, if you play around with a bow and arrow, sooner or later you'll get hit or someone else. If you play around with drugs, and that's the risk people playing around with them understood. And if it went wrong, it was your fucking fault. Just like doing some other dangerous thing, swimming in a waterfall or something. It's up to you. Then someone in America realized you could disenfranchise a whole bunch of people. Artists, intellectuals, Jews, blacks, gays, fucking, you know, all the people they would like to disenfranchise, who are some kind of threat to this white this kind of left brain maniac group of people who seem to have, who are coalescing, constantly coalescing this kind of thought that's it's anti-magic, it's anti-love, it's anti-freedom, it's anti-grooviness, it's anti-art, it's anti-music. It's all about having this regulated world under their control, and sort of pretty much like they were predicting in the Bible when everybody's going to have 666, except that seems like a flowery, archaic way of seeing it. But at some point it will come, if you don't have this, you won't be able to deal with the world, and that's coming soon with a new world order. So they sort of, this whole drug thing, and basically people taking drugs and going, fuck you, I'm not being part of your system. I don't want to fight in a war. I don't hate someone in Iraq because you tell me to. They're going, fucking what's this guy on? We better get rid of that and get him back on booze. If you get a whole load of people drinking booze and cigarettes, they're like, yeah, we got to go over there and kick some Iraqi butt. You know, but someone smoking DMT ain't thinking that. He's going, hang on a minute, why should I trust you? Look at all these other wars you're getting everybody killed in. So it became like 100 odd years ago, it suddenly, for the first time ever, because back in the old days, you could go wherever you like with a pocket full of opium, or coca leaves or hashish. You could turn on or fucking take whatever dope there was. You could take it, and it wasn't considered. I guess in Muslim countries, alcohol might have been an issue, but generally it wasn't considered a legal issue until someone suddenly turned it all around, until it became, and it spread right throughout the world, everybody thinking that drug taking is a legal issue, and that people taking drugs, any kind of drugs, now they're all lumped into one, your DMT and your heroin and your ketamine and your marijuana and your ayahuasca, every drug, all these incredible things are now all lumped into one. Drugs, they're all bad. This is your brain on drugs. You've fried your brain. You're a bad person. You're un-American. You don't like the Vietnamese War. You're lazy. You're a couch potato. Turn in, tune in, drop out. You're not part of the system. Throw them in jail. Put them in loony bins. Disenfranchise them. Don't listen to them. You know what I mean? Rendition them, hunt them down, seek them out. All the stuff that happens. So drugs is a very complicated issue. Some drugs are really dangerous drugs, and some drugs are kind of subtly dangerous. That's like cocaine. Cocaine's subtly dangerous. Not like heroin. It's not so like got you by the balls. It's more like a cat. It's sort of letting you go away and sort of pulling you back in and subtly fucking with your mind, so you're thinking all this weird stuff. All of the drugs have pros and cons. Now, I've been smoking marijuana for 40 years. I'm 60 next year. I've been smoking marijuana for 40 years. So far, I would have to say, out of all the things I've ever had, and I've had them all, I would have to say marijuana is the most benign, benevolent, mostly giving, very little taking. It does have its drawbacks. It does give you munchies. It can produce a bit of paranoia, and you've got to learn to sort of discipline yourself and go, fuck that shit. That car driving behind me is not the fucking CIA. It's just because I've had a smoke. I think it's the CIA. It's a black car and it's been following me. Yeah, but I'm driving up Pitt Street. Of course it's following me. You've got to sort of get all that out of your head. So I find some drugs useful, some drugs aren't useful. I think making it a legal question has caused so much damage, and it's really time that we looked at especially what marijuana can do, especially for people getting off other drugs. Marijuana is a great gateway drug, but it's a gateway back to a sort of normality. For somebody who's sitting there, some methamphetamine addict, some heroin addict, some alcoholic who's now gone through the detox and is just sitting there, and their life is like this blank, grey, horrible with their favourite thing from their life gone, life just seems like shit. If they could smoke a bit of dope, not for all of them, but for some of them, it would give them, they wouldn't feel so bad. They wouldn't have to go through that, and they could go, oh, Christ isn't so bad. You know, I've got a bit of an appetite. You know, I feel like, you know, interested in things don't seem so bad. But just the fact that they're withholding it from cancer patients who don't have an appetite, and people with really bad depression, and all the kind of things that could be used for, it's just ridiculous, really.